everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Pickles and Bacon Rewind. I am your hostess, the Pickwells, and over to this side of me is my brother Bequan. Say hello, Beckhead.
Hello, Bacon.
All right, you guys, we are reviewing, as you can tell by the pictures behind us. This is we did the Beatles Let It Be the last time, and then we did the soundtrack, and then this is our movie in between. Before we start getting into Law and Order, we're gonna we're gonna start Law and Order on Sunday, and that'll be season one. But basically, this podcast is Deke and I have come together for our third iteration of this podcast, where we're gonna be reviewing movies, music, and TV, and some of the things that we love. We've decided that we created a list of categories and things to fill out and look out for Law and Order and all the movies and shows that we're doing. And so, as our first movie, we decided to do a musical called That Thing You Do. So, Bacon, tell me, what do you know about the movie That Thing You Do? Like the history, anything like that?
Well, I know that in 1997 there was a movie that was made about a rock and roll band called The Wonders, and it was supposed to be loosely based on some categories of the Beatles. Like there, if you watch the version that I watched, there's a lot of Beatles in your windows, and there's also an Elvis tie-in, which was really funny to me, which I caught right away, and I thought it was really funny. So
Awesome, awesome. So I took some notes, and this is from Wikipedia. So don't hate, cause I got this from Wikipedia.
now
So
understand that we are making notes on this. Like we're not these aren't scripted by any means. We are making
mm-mm.
notes.
But we do have notes on some of the things that we saw and some of the things that happened in the movie and things like that. So this is basically our review and thoughts about what we saw, what we did. But to give you a breakdown, That Thing You Do is a 1996 musical comedy drama film written and directed by Tom Hanks and in his directorial debut. So, before we continue, I have to mention something regarding Tom Hanks. There's this video on YouTube where I guess he's at some sort of award show, and Big Bird comes in and he's like, he tells Tom Hanks that he's in his seat, and then Tom Hanks is like giving him mess about it. So he's like, "Oh, by the way, it says thanks," and he's like, "No, my name is Tom Hanks," and Big Bird shows him his paper and it says thanks. So from here on out, we will be calling Tom Hanks thanks. So just letting you know that. Anyways, moving on. The film is set in 1960s. Uh, it's set in the 1960s, and it's a rock. In like the rock and roll culture. It tells the story of the rise and fall of a fictional one-hit wonder pop band, and stars Tom Everett Scott, Liv Tyler, Jonathan Sheck, Steve Zahn, Ethan Embry, and thanks. Um, its introduction, its production and music are one of the keys to its narrative, and with the original scores and collaboration of artists including Thanks, Adam Schlesinger, and Howard Shore. The soundtrack peaked at number 21 on the Billboard 200 charts, and it features a mix of Diagetto. I have no idea what that means. And non diegetic tracks. I have no idea what that means. And the cast practiced for weeks to perform convincingly on camera, blurring the lines between reality and fiction. Y'all are lying because, like, have you seen this movie? They are really playing. Like, come on. Anyways, so the film was well received by critics and received several accolades. The film resulted in a musical hit with the titular song of the same name called That Thing You Do, which was nominated for an Academy Award and a Golden Globe Award for Best Original Song. So that's a little bit of the history of this movie. It came out in 1996. Deacon, why don't you, or Bacon, why don't you tell us how old you were in 1996?
Shit, I can't even remember what I had for breakfast. You want me to tell you how old I was in 1996? Let me see. I was born in 88. So 88 to 89 would have been 10 years. So I would have been at least 7 or 8.
You were 8. I was 10 when this movie came out. I do remember seeing it. I liked the music. I still like the music. I listen to the soundtrack all the time. The soundtrack is in my playlist, by the way. Literally all the time. Literally all the time. Anyways, so I guess we're gonna get into some of the review. Some things I noticed, and we'll just talk about some funny stuff that we were discussing earlier. So, the first thing is the movie opens with a shot of classic cars on the street driving down, the street, and then um the song "Loving You Lots and Lots" plays during the song. Now, this song is only during the opening. I don't think I heard it anywhere else in the movie.
It's in the opening
Um
and the end. It's in the opening and the end.
I think it might be on the end, but I think they also do a different version of that thing you do at the end. Um and fun fact is when you listen to the soundtrack, it doesn't have all the singers on it who actually sang that song. So like the Wonders, when they play their songs, it's listed as the Wonders. Loving You Lots and Lots is listed as Norm Wooster or whoever, or Freddie Fletcher. I don't remember, but they're listed in their names. And then the next thing that we see is the appliance store, where the main character, Guy Patterson, played by Tom Everett Scott, can be seen coming out of the car. He's talking to the customers. And I put here, fun fact, Tom Everett Scott is hot in the beginning. Uh, it jumps right into the opening at the appliance store where Guy is talking to the customers and showing them all like their appliances and things like that, which I must say, some of those appliances, I bet you some of those appliances would still work and hold up, though. Don't you think?
Well, that was what, said in 1966. So you know that was back when products were actually made decently. Said what I
Oh,
said.
for sure, for sure. And the name of the appliance store is called Patterson's Appliances. Like, oh, how freaking original, right? Okay. And then it jumps to a shot immediately of us seeing Guy is a fan of jazz music, and cuts down to a scene of him playing the drums in the basement. Now, I also have to say, uh, we watched the. Is it the extended edition or is it the
It's the
director's
extended.
cut?
It's the direct. Either one works. Director's cut, extended edition, whichever. It's the same
Right.
thing.
So there's scenes in here that are not in the original movie, and I don't remember that part with him practicing on the drums being in the original movie. So
It is. It is.
it may
It
be.
is, but it is, but it's a little bit of a shorter scene.
Yeah. And it's the first time we get to see Del Paxton on the record when he pulls out the record and is playing along with the record. Next we see the sign. The sign is still on, and I remember the dad in this scene is screaming, "Are we open all night?" Like, dude, calm down. It's just the light. So there was nothing really. I don't think that was really comical, but like, I guess people like us who are like millennials are like, "Do the lights on?" Anyways, um, then the next thing is the car's radio plays Mr. Downtown while Guy is driving home after work, and then this is the first time that we see Charlize Theron. She plays his girlfriend Tina. Her makeup, by the way, in this movie, like she's got that pink lipstick. She looks like a little girl. Like if I had to think of someone from this particular time frame that was described as her, that's what I would think of. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But yeah, and so she drives up this little like black sports car, And like I instantly got the feeling like she just doesn't like him, but she's like going along with it because she has no other options. But that was just me. And then I so then the next scene is Kirk Douglas on the TV screen, which I think is from the movie Spartacus. I've never seen it. I'm not a Kirk
Oh, okay, okay, that makes sense
I'm not a
now.
Kirk Douglas stan, but it does make sense for everything that every time he keeps saying I am Spartacus, which like okay, I got it like hello like 30 years later and I'm like, "Oh."
I finally got it now too. It's all this time I finally got it.
And that's you know the I am Spartacus. That's the first time we see him say it. I was trying to get a count of how many times Guy says I am Spartacus in the movie. I think I counted about maybe 7 to 10 times. I don't know, but it's a lot. And then that leads to the usual kissing scene, and you know, and then Tina says something dumb like they've been together for almost a year, and then they broke up for like 2 months. Which again, I'm like, honestly, girl, like just say you don't like the dude. Also, I picked up on the fact she was a gold digger right away. I'm just saying. And then, this next part cracked me up because the name of the little place where Guy meets everyone that's coming up next is called Watson's Rexall Drugs. What the heck is a Rexall? Is that Watson? Is Roxon is Watson Rexall the owner's name? I don't understand what that means, but okay. And so this drugstore is obviously like a little soda fountain type place because it looks like a restaurant, like a some sort
It's
of
a
diner
cafe. It's a little like
or like a
cafe.
cafe thing, and that's where Guy pulls up in Tina's little black sports car that she had been driving the night before, and this is where uh the first time before we meet the band, Guy hits somebody's car, and you're like, oh, that was a ding. Luckily, the damage wasn't bad. But this is where we meet the guys. You meet Jimmy and his girlfriend Faye, played by Jonathan Sheck and Liv Tyler,
She's
who
right here.
are
I'm right here.
gorgeous. She's so gorgeous. Like I can't. I'm so jelly. And then you meet Lenny, played by Steve Zahn, and the band's OG drummer. I think his name is Chad. I think I heard them mention it a few times. But I wasn't paying attention. But he's played by Giovanni Ribisi. And then you meet TB. He's called TB the whole time in the movie. He never has an actual name. I don't know why they did that, but it's Ethan Embry. Um, which is like, okay, can we give this guy a name? But he's listed as TB, like the bass player. So, and then Guy walks in and says, "Faye, I dinged your bumper." And then he says, "I'm gonna buy you all breakfast." And Steve Zahn's like, "I should have had the steak and eggs."
Steve
And
Zahn
that
was the
was
comic relief throughout the movie. Let me just tell you.
Steve Zahn in this movie was so funny. Like I had to laugh. There's so many times I'm just like, did he say that? Like, did he really just say that?
I'm convinced that at this point they just let him be him, and half of that stuff was ad libbed. I guarantee it.
Oh, for sure, for sure. It was definitely ad libbed. And then they all have the band has this like little moment where they're discussing the song that they had written, and they're gonna play some sort of college
Talent
thing in
show.
about 2 days, like college talent show in like 2 days from this part. And then the scene jumps immediately back to the appliance store where Guy's mom is playing the organ. And like I really was like, oh my god, this is so long, but it wasn't long. I didn't like that particular piece. And then the dad is like running around and be like, "Don't mention telemark. They're killing us right now." I did grab some of the funny lines. By the way, you'll be hearing them as they pop up, and then Um,
My favorite line hasn't come up yet. It's gonna come up here in a minute,
it's
but
coming up. It's coming up. I had to pause several times so I could write it down. But as that whole little like thing in the appliance store is going on, and everyone is like reading the newspaper, the scene then jumps to Jimmy and Lenny. They're outside that same drugstore. I guess they're looking at records or some sort of paper. I can't really remember.
no, they're discussing the band name, and he's telling him
Oh
about
yeah,
how he likes if he likes it, and he says it's the herdsman, like one of the senses. And he goes,
yeah,
right, but
like
I don't get it. That's what he says.
yeah. But I feel like I've heard the herdsman somewhere before. But anyways, so they're like thinking about band names while the OG drummer Chad and TB are like playing leapfrog over the like parking meters, and then the OG drummer falls down and like breaks his arm. Like, okay, like I see what you did there, but like honestly, you didn't have to go that hard. Thanks. I'm just saying. But anyways, and and then side note is like Ethan Embry's also hot because like yeah, I know. And then the next thing is the Hoover display that I noticed when like the Hoover signs when after this particular scene when Jimmy and Lenny go into the appliance store and ask Guy to play for him or for them when they're going to that college thing. And the Hoover signs are like a reddish orange color, and they just have like Hoover on it, and then it has like all these old fashioned vacuums in front of it. Um, and then Steve Zahn says, "We need you, Skitch." And then he's like, "I don't know, I can't do it because like I'm working." And then Jimmy or somebody says, "How about sitting in for Chad for the night?" And we're like, "Okay, I see." And so this next part is the part that Deke loves because it immediately jumps to the rehearsal where they're like teaching Guy what the song's about, and it's like chord bridge, chord, and I was like, "What the heck did you just say, my guy? Like what?" And then uh just before we jump to that scene, Guy says that he would play for them if they bought these magic hands. He's like, or he says something like, if you want these magic hands, you have to buy 2 record needles, and they're like
And a
fourteen
radio,
ninety.
and a radio.
Oh yeah, and the radio, and it's like 14.95 a piece. I'm like, how much is the freaking record needles? What? Seems kind of pricey, but I'm just like, okay. And
Those are
then
today's prices for record needles. Like seriously,
that's like it's like for how much is a record needle now? By the way, I don't
it's like
even
eight
know.
ninety. Well, for a 3 pack, it's like $8.99.
Are they like universal?
They're for like the one that I have, and it's like a pack of 3 like this for $8.99.
I don't even know how it comes off. And then immediately before we get into the rehearsals, the next thing is Tina meets the what dentist, and again I noticed Charlize makeups. Charlize's Darren's makeup in that particular scene is amazing in that close up where she's just like all smiley, like hi. I don't know who that dentist was, like as far as because this film is full of so many guest stars. And you'll hear them as we go along. But I couldn't figure out who that was or whatever. But he's got like a tab hunter thing going on or whatever. Um, and then now we get to Bacon's favorite part, of course, where they're in the garage playing. I think this is Faye's house, or
I think it's
maybe
Jimmy's
Jimmy's
house. I think
house.
it's Jimmy's garage because the way that it looks like it's in Jimmy's house. So I don't know.
And Faye is loading sodas into the cooler, and she says, and then like they have a little banter. Jimmy and Lenny are trying to teach Guy the drummer the chords and everything like that, as I just mentioned previously. And then Faye says, "Chad's arm is so scary. I don't think I've ever seen anything swell up so fast." And he was like, and Bacon started laughing so hard, and I was laughing at this next bit too. Because when I tell you that my dude Lenny, Steve Zahn, came in clutch, he turns to Jimmy and says, "Hey Jimmy, don't take that so personally, old man." And then he like smirks, and I like he fucking knew the whole time that Jimmy was a fucking jerk. Like, why didn't you say something, my guy? Like the heck?
Why do you think he kept dogging him? Why do you think he kept dogging him the whole time? Throughout the whole movie, he kept dogging him.
He like totally clocked that, and I was like, I couldn't. And then
And I tell y'all, I was dying. By that point, I was dying.
and then for I don't know how it exactly happens, but Guy comes up with the wonders. And then like Faye has this moment where she's like, "That's it, Guy Patterson," and she like has that like cliche like, "You did it," like you like, and you're
Well,
like,
it happens
okay.
if you watch the movie. It happens because he goes, "That's it, we're done," and she goes, "Yeah," and he's like, "Wonderful," and then he does that little drum beat.
Yeah. And then Jimmy has the bright idea to write it as the wonders, like Onders, and then Lenny says, "Yeah, that looks like the Oneaters." And then ever since he said after he says that, like every time they
You
use that
can't
name,
unsee it.
everyone calls them the Oneaters. Literally. And I'm like, that they were wrong for that, but I love that. And then the next scene is it immediately jumps to the alpha folk singers at the college, this like girl group, and they're singing this like folky song, and you're like, oh my god, can we not? But yeah, and then the next thing is there's that cameo from the guy that's on TikTok, the actor. I cannot remember his name, but he's the one that's heckling the crowd in the college. He looks sort of nerdy, and he's like always in some of the movies that I've seen him in. He's like always like the like dorky dude, or he's like always like one of the villains. I couldn't remember his name, you guys. I'm really sorry, but I remember seeing him on TikTok, especially when they were having the SAG AFTRA strike. Um, but I can't remember his name. But anyways, this whole time the TikToker actor dude thing is literally heckling the hell out of everyone. And then we get the only scene in this, well, second, the first of two scenes I think between Charlize Theron and Liv Tyler as Tina and Faye, where they're sitting together for the show.
That's the
And
second
then
because they're also together at Villa Pianos.
yeah, they're also together later on at Villa Pianos. We'll discuss that later. And then there's that awful white mariachi band that plays. And I was like, okay, stop. Just stop. And then it goes into a brilliant scene of the announcer calling them the Oneaters. And then at first they get tangled in the cord. And then Guy immediately does a count off and goes really fast to start that thing you do, and the crowd goes wild. You're like, okay, how did I know this was gonna
Shocker.
happen? You're like, shocking, right? And then Jimmy, of course, is like, oh no, that's not how you play it, dude. And then, but Lenny's like loving it. He's like smirking the entire time. That's happening. You guys, sorry, I'm just grabbing something here.
And let me just tell
And
y'all, if y'all haven't figured it out by this point, Lenny and Guy are my favorites in this movie.
he was amazing. And then everyone sort of falls in line and they start, and you can hear the song sort of speed up when they're singing. And the crowd goes wild. And of course, they win the contest. And that's where we meet the like sleazy owner of Villa Pianos, like I guess the Italian restaurant that's in Erie. I don't know, but they're serving a lot of pizza. I'm like, really, guys? Really, dude? Okay, I'm just saying, it's just an observation. And then this is the first um and then after the like Villa Pianos and they read everything, the next note that I have is when they're back in the garage and Jimmy's upset because now they have to rehearse for the show, and he did it too fast. Guy did the beat too fast. And then I think this is the extended version. Again, I don't remember the scene in the original version,
Theatrical
but Guy
version.
and Faye have their first moment over a bologna sandwich, a bologna sandwich, which I thought was interesting. And I was like, okay. I was like,
Well,
literally, she's making them.
I think he was playing around. I don't think that that was the whole thing. I think like that was him just being goofy and playing around with her.
I think that they literally had more chemistry the entire time than they even really knew. But that was my first take on it. And then the next thing is the ballad is sweet. Oh, the ballad that they sing at Villa Pianos is like nice, but it's so boring and everyone's like we just want to dance. And then the next thing is while they're playing at Villa Pianos, the appliance sign is still on, and I could just hear his dad freaking out and throwing a little tantrum, which I thought was pretty funny. And then they get the bright ideas like maybe we should make a record because everybody was asking where they could get the song that thing you do at Villa Pianos, and then they make a record. Because we then find out that Guy's uncle is like some sort of gospel recording. What did he say in the movie? He records like
He
music.
records church music.
Yeah. And they record that thing you do in a church, which it's funny because in my notes I'm like, if you knew, like, if you're a music historian and things like that, when rock and roll first came out, they called it the devil's music. So to have them playing a rock and roll song, that thing you do, in a church is fucking hilarious. And then this is where we get a cameo that Guy's Uncle Bob is actually played by Chris Isaac, the musician. Also, author's note, I know who Chris Isaac is because I remember seeing the Chris Isaac show once or twice, but for the life of me, could not tell you what song he sings. I have no idea.
You told
No
me
idea.
you're talking about Chris Isaac. I'm sitting here like crickets.
Yeah, like I know who he is. Like I could identify him. The tornado's in here. Nix is here. But I did notice that that was Chris Isaacs. And then after they record the A side and the B side for that thing you do, the next thing is you see them playing again at Villa Pianos, and they're selling records this time. And this is the first time that we also meet Chrissy Tompkins, who I think is like a stalker or like a pick me kind of girl. He's just trying to like get into the band. She's like that little like weird brown haired
AKA
girl.
groupie. AKA a groupie.
Yeah, she's like the one of the originators of groupies, and you're like, okay, like calm down, Chrissy. This is like little time. Wait till they're big stars, right? And then you get Guy's girlfriend again, Tina, coming to the show at Villa Pianos, which she hates, but she's getting drunk. And then the line that I recorded here that I wrote down that I thought was funny was the owner of Villa Piano saying, "Hey Ringo, showtime! You're he's like you should have been on minutes ago." And then they sing a little wild one, or it's playing. I think they start singing it.
Yeah,
Am
my
I
little yeah.
right? And then after that, a fight breaks out, and everyone is Faye's like standing on a chair in the corner, like watching this fight break out because she thinks it's funny. And of course, Tina, Guy's girlfriend, is pissed off, like, girl, bye.
And Guy Lenny and the bass player are just hemming it up and playing a theme song behind it. It's funny.
Exactly. They play during the fight, and it's funny. I don't know what song that is, by the way, but then and then the next scene is they're at the appliance store.
Again.
Um again, Guy is doing his thing, and this is the first time that we get an Elvis mention. Now, I can't remember exactly what was said But I do remember that.
I remember he says y'all should have played Jailhouse Rock.
Oh yeah, he says jail. He said y'all should have played Jailhouse Rock. And then I noticed that the chairs that they were sitting on say RCA Victor, which I think was strategically placed because I think that was Elvis on RCA.
Yes, later after Sun Records, which if anybody knows Elvis like I do, he was at Sun Records for I think 6 months, and then he was sold to RCA by Sam Phillips.
Yeah, I also noticed that they don't ever mention Elvis by name, but they make implications of Elvis. Um, I don't remember. I'll come back to that. And then, so the RCA Victors on the chairs that guy's dad is sitting on. When that creepy camper record producer manager comes in to talk to Guy about the record he heard, and then lures him into the back of the RV and the camper. And then the next thing is the band is sitting eating stew from this guy's camper, and they sign their first recording contract, which I mean, I
Sketch.
mean, I've eaten worse in worse places, so like I don't hate it, but like still like it's a little sus. And of course, they sign their recording contracts. And then there's this funny part where they all come out of the camper, and like Guy's dad's there, and he's holding like this firecracker, and guys like, here, let me take that firecracker. And then because everyone was drinking, and he's like, are you drunk? Were you all drinking beer? He's like, y'all come back here. I want to talk to all of you right now. And they just like take off. I was like, God, calm down, my dude. And then the next scene is Tina flirting her ass off with the hot dentist. I mean, seriously, guys, he wasn't that hot. Like, he's all right looking, but like, he's like the basic, white tap hunter dude that's like in every like 50s movie. But I digest. And then we get another scene again with Guy dinging the car. And Guy asks if their song has been played on the radio yet. And this is at I think back at the appliance store.
No, this is at
And
the cafe again.
wait,
They're back at the cafe
oh
on the scene
that's
again.
at the cafe. That's on the cafe again. And this is the part where he buys everyone the portable radios, right?
Yes.
Um, and then at that point, Chad, the old OG drummer, comes back, and they're like, "Oh, hi, Chad. How's it going?"
And then
I was
again, then
like,
he has to be the comic relief. He's like, oh, he's like, that's right, Chad.
like, tell him, dude, because he's about to find out, like, literally any second now. That had to suck, though. And then that's when we hear that. Now, I don't remember this being in the theatrical version of that thing you do, but Deke Bacon, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in the extended scene, TB tells everyone that he enlisted in the army. Do you
It's not.
remember?
It's not until they sign with thanks that he tells them.
Yeah, but I think this is where this is the first we see. So what's happening in this scene is
He doesn't tell them yet. Like he goes into the army store, but they don't know yet that he's going into the army.
yeah,
Like he
he's
doesn't.
going into the army store and he's listening to the radio, and they're the like handheld radios, and they have like the little headset in, and guys at the store, Faye's putting letters in the mailbox, and that's when that thing you do comes on the radio, and everyone starts running down the street screaming and yelling that their song is on the radio. Then Faye meets TB, and they start running together um, to the appliance store, and there's like
The look
a
on Guy's face in this
kerfuffle,
scene,
and guys,
priceless.
guys face and his dad is like, what is happening right now? But I low key love how he didn't tell his father about the band or like what was happening, because he would have hated on him majorly. Um, and then they put all the radios on in the store, and they're all playing that thing you do, and that's when Jimmy and Lenny pull up, and they all start jumping around the store, be like,
Blocking
hey,
traffic. Blocking traffic. By the way.
Exactly, blocking traffic, and then of course it ends with the "I am Spartacus." This is the second time we hear it in the movie. And then, okay, this next note I wrote, oh, it's bad. I was like, Tina's a hater and in love with the dentist. Like, literally, that's what's happening. See, however, this in this extended edition, it actually shows more of her, like what she was doing, because I believe in the theatrical version, like that last time, you don't ever see her again. Like I think after the when they start going on the road, you don't ever see her again. And then I don't think it's mentioned until the very end. And
Well,
then
there is the scene in the bar where they're with Mr. White, and he goes, "Does anybody at home think Guy is amazing?" And she goes, "Well, he was in love with this girl named Tina, but then that's it. Like it's not mentioned
yeah,
again."
but like we don't see her after that last scene. Anyways, then the record producer is back to tell them that he wants to take them on tour. And Guy immediately like, "Oh yeah, let's go on tour." But he also says Faye comes. This is the second time, y'all, that you pick up on like what he's throwing down. I'm just like, okay, just saying. And then okay, so the next part that I wrote down is the Kevin Pollock playing Boss Vic Koss. His wig was hysterical. Now in the theatrical version, it only goes to him being like, "Oh, this is the Box Bit Ka show," and he's like on the stage, and he's like, "I'm gonna give you a show. I'm gonna give you a king size show," and he does this like little jig. But in this one, the extended cut, we immediately see like they're in his dressing room, and he like kicks them out, and he's being all mean to them, and then he has that like little vocal warm up, and he's like the mama, and then it jumps into the then they have like a little moment with the band, and is the record producer there? I don't know if the
Well,
record producer was there.
he comes in after the whole scene progresses, and then he goes, "How are my boys?" And then Guy says, "Ready to show Pittsburgh no mercy."
Yeah, and then uh so in this though, in the one that we were watching, the extended cut, um the they're autographing the wall that had like all the names of all the like famous people that ever played at that theater. And Lenny's like, "You got a pen? I'm gonna put my name next to Otis Redding's name." And so there's that. And of course, Faye and Guy have another moment. They're talking about so in this theatrical version, you see Faye bringing in them more food and sandwiches and like drinks and things like that. And Guy and Faye have another moment where they're talking about the theater. And Faye says that she feels kind of like a tag along. And Guy tells her that she is technically a fifth of the band, but she's been there for like ever. She created their name, which, like, I gotta say, like, he really looked out for her in the beginning, because, like, that was dope. That was pretty dope. And then, that's when they're so in this theatrical scene, they're preparing for the show. You can see TB is doing push-ups on the floor. Lenny's drawing on the Boss Fit Cost poster. And then, of course, the Oneaters go on and they open the show with That Thing You Do, but they're
Which
getting
doesn't
booed
turn
by.
out too well. It doesn't turn out too well for them.
Yeah, they start getting booed because they're getting a lot of feedback from the mics, and then the cymbal falls, and they didn't have a good show. And so they're talking to their record producer and their manager, who takes them to this Chinese food place. And this is where we finally get to see Thanks, who played Tone Records, exec Mr. White. Okay, let's pause here for a second. Tom
Pause.
Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson are the executive producers of the Greek Wedding franchise. And I live because I get a kick out of the play tone symbol every time it comes out. when you see the movie, because that's what their production company's called, right? And I think it's in the second one they play a Greek version of that thing you do like at the like at their little party at the end of the movie, and I'm like, you guys need to stop because I can't. And I want it on a record, but I can't find it anywhere. But I'm gonna watch it again tonight. But I just thought that was pretty funny, and every time I see something that they directed or they're a part of, I'm gonna be looking for that. I'm gonna be looking for Playtone and that thing you do again. And then, so Thanks is like, well, I'm gonna take you on tour, and he does that whole snowman thing. I wonder where I've seen this scene before. Shall we?
Snowman strikes
Anyone?
again. The snowman strikes again.
Anyone?
And I'm Elvis Presley. That's what I do.
Exactly. And so, Thanks has a great line here where he says, welcome to this galaxy of stars of the play," or he says, "Welcome to the Playtone Galaxy of Stars," and then he officially changes their names to the Wonders, the Wonders, and says they're gonna start wearing nice suits and they're gonna be all clean cut and look like the Beatles. Sorry, the dog is barking. And then this is the scene where TB tells everyone that he is going to be enlisting in the Marines. So everyone's already prepared and like, okay, great. I don't remember if that again. I don't remember if the scene is in the theatrical version.
It is. It is. This part where because it cuts from the Chinese food restaurant to where they're in the dressing room, and then he tells everyone that he's not going to be with the band after the end of August.
I see. And then the next thing we see is Tina's pink
Yes.
princess phone. That's ringing while she's playing tennis with the hot doctor.
Golf, not
And
tennis.
golf, yes, golf. And then I noted Princess Phone is goaded. Because it was so big and pretty. And it was just like in its own little moment. It had like a little close up. And it was lit. And like she was looking really pretty. I'm just saying. But that was funny. And then now you get the tour that begins, and you see people starting to like fall in love, and you get to meet the Chantrellines. And Lenny meets Diane Dane, who's wearing this pretty blue dress as she walks by with a boa. And then Guy and Lenny meet Freddie Fredrickson, who sings Mr. Downtown. It's on the soundtrack, by the way. And then the next thing is the classic band. They walk. They're wearing the classic like dark suits in this scene, and they're walking to the stage.
No, it's the red
Sorry, they're
suits. It's
not.
the red
They're not wearing
suits.
the black suits. They're wearing the red suits, and they walk to the stage, and then this is
It's
the
also when we got
first.
our second Elvis mention.
This is the second time when we got the Elvis mention. What did you say when you got the second Elvis mention?
So he says, "Have you seen? Oh, it's climbing up the charts." And he goes 93. And so when they look at it, it says 93, and then right above it is Viva Las Vegas.
Yeah, I thought I saw that. And then uh Mr. White. Oh, so sidebar when in the scene before just before this goes on, and Mr. White's meeting the band and briefing them before they start the tour. He goes over everything where he's talking about them enlisting in the band, and he says Faye is going to be their costume mistress, and Guy gets his shades, and then Guy doesn't come home right away. From I wrote Guy's not coming home because like after this, like there's no way he can come back to the appliance store. But anyways, that was a side note. So in the same scene with the red suit, Thanks sends Faye to go get Guy Shades. That's what they start calling him now. Everyone calls him Shades. Everyone's madly in love with the drummer because like honestly same. Like honestly same. And then that's where we hear the first time Lenny say, "Well, take us there, Skitch," and they immediately drumbeat starts and they go into that thing you do. And actually, I'm surprised for it being a film about a one-hit wonder. That thing you do doesn't actually play that much in the film.
Yeah, because they had other
Maybe like
songs. Yeah, because they had other songs. They had like Little Wild One. They had All My Only Dreams, which also is a good song too, because that's the one that he's playing. That's the ballad at Villa Pianos.
yeah, they play it like maybe two or three times throughout the movie. And then the next thing is the Elvis mentioned where they get the billboard that the song is climbing the charts and they're number 73. And
93.
then or 93. And then the next thing is where TB meets the Chantrellines and is like totally in love with that song, which that song, thanks, did you write that song? Because that song that they sing, girl, I'll be all up in my feels when that song comes out on the record. Like, stop. I can't. And then, oh, and then the next part, I don't remember again if this is in the theatrical version, but I wrote it down where they're like having a monkeys kind of moment where they're being silly, riding their bikes, and playing around on the map of the US. I think
That's in
this
the
is in
theatrical version. They also
yeah.
do something similar in the Boss Vikas arena, where
Yeah.
they have that little Beatles moment. Like this one is like almost like a monkeys moment, but the first one is almost like a Beatles type moment.
Yeah, at the Boswick Cost Theater, what I did when I saw when they were looking at the theater, I did remember each one of them steps into the frame and you can see like their side profile. I thought that was an interesting angle though, by the way. And then the next thing is guy sends a letter to his girlfriend Tina with pictures in a fancy while he's sitting in a fancy house and this white woman is like vacuuming. The house is never seen or mentioned again.
That's Thanks' house. It's supposed to be Thanks' house.
Yeah, that's probably thinks his house. And then I think this part though, I don't remember if this is in the theatrical version, but then we jump to TB in bed and that's when Guy comes in to show him the newspaper
That
article.
part is where he knocks on the door and he comes in and he shows him the newspaper article. Everything else that happens after that is not in the
Yeah,
theatrical.
and then you do like a scene of him doing like okay did I he's showing him the newspaper article and then it pans up and you see he's in bed with one of the girls from the Chantrellines and I'm like I love that for you.
And the
And
look
then
I
the
got
little
his face, he's
handshake
like,
and
and
then
then
the little
Lady
handshake
Gaga.
thing at the door like oh yeah. And then you get this and then the immediate next thing is the cheesy like band running through. Oh my god. Sorry, the racetrack, which I don't get that part. I don't understand that. I really don't. I have nothing.
That part I'm just like, okay, cool. Cause I guess it's because they were playing at the livestock show. That's what they said. So I don't know.
Yeah, and then it immediately jumps into Lenny, my guy Lenny, finally singing "Dance with Me," which I think is a really good song. Probably better than that thing you do, but I'm just saying.
Shots fired.
I'm just saying.
Shots fired.
And
Shots fired,
then
y'all.
and then you get to see all the bands playing. The first one is the Chantrellines singing "Hold My Hand, Hold My Heart." I love that song so much. It's so good. And then you get a little clip of TB like dancing because he's all in love to that song. Man, I wish they had said at the end of the movie, but you'll hear about that later. I'll come back to that. And Lenny is playing Go Fish with these old men at the table. And then Guy is meeting Bobby Washington, the jazz legend. And he's like, "Oh, I played with Del Paxton." And then Jimmy's going to talk to Diane Dane. And then Thanks is asking Faye about their relationship and asks about Guy because I think everybody but her is picking up what Guy's throwing down. But I don't even think either of them at the time figured out what was happening. But like, you could definitely see it. I was like, okay, like,
Well,
I guess.
first of all, if you couldn't tell it was gonna happen, like, because he was the one that was tending to her throughout the entire movie.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And then it immediately, she tells him about Tina that it's at home, that she's back at home. And then again, this is the extended thing where we see that Tina is wallpapering the dentist office, and I think this is the last time that we see her in the movie. I think that's the last time. And it's awful wallpaper, by the way. I'm just saying, at least in my opinion.
It was. It
And
was.
then, uh, and then the next part is they're all singing, and Diane Dane has this little moment that just pisses me off, where she sits in Jimmy's lap, like, stop, don't you dare, don't. I have to get that on my chest, but I'm just saying. And then the next part is obviously the gold suits. When they sing that thing you do for the second time. Uh, and that's the first time where you see Faye's on stage. She, or on the side of the stage, and she is coughing. She's obviously not feeling well. And they have this like little moment where they're running through the, I guess, the backstage area to get into the cars, and as they're leaving, Faye gets held back because I guess the police think that she's some sort of groupie because they don't pay attention. Now, how they are with women, I'm just saying. And Guy obviously goes back for her so that they can get into the car and leave together. And that's when they're told they have the number 7 record. I'm like, okay, it's not bad. And then the next part is one of my favorite parts is when Faye is really sick on the plane, and Guy tucks her in. He's like, "No, go to sleep. Don't move around." And then I was like, I also wrote in my notes, this is when I knew that he was in love with her, but he doesn't know that he's in love with her. And then they have a little discussion with Mr. White, and Mr. White gives Guy these pills. He's like, tell her to take 2 of these white pills and 1 of these blue pills. I'm like,
They got
what?
almost the exact same way. He got almost the exact same way. Don't do that. Don't do that.
I'm just like, I don't think you should be doing that. And then this is where he's like, oh, do you guys want to film a movie? And then we get Captain Geach in the shrimp shack. And it's cheesy, y'all. Because they arrive at the um they're on the set of the movie, and Jimmy's like being a diva. He's like, we shouldn't be here, and they're all just playing up to it. And then the actor, I remember the actor in the scene's like, we're being invaded, and he's like so trying to be like a cheap imitation of like Gilligan with the hat and shit. But I digress.
And this
And
is where we
then
get our second cameo of Clint Howard.
yeah, this is where we got Clint Howard, our second cameo. And then just after that, they arrive at the Ambassador Hotel, and this is where like all the good stuff, like all the cheese man comes out. And then we see Faye is at the hotel pharmacy, with the doorman Omar, who like literally, was Omar even real? Because it's like maybe a couple times he's in there, but he's like literally the like MVP of the movie.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say. I was gonna be like, is this supposed to be like he's technically like a guardian angel, but they're just alluding to it, like they're not actually saying?
Yeah, I was like, is this person even real? Because like
Because
he's like,
he doesn't have no interaction with Mr. White that I know of.
and well, they did have it when they were. You'll hear about it before Rita Wilson comes out. But I was like, is he even real? But I digress. And he tells Faye that she can charge her medicines to the room, and then she goes back to the room, and she's sick alone in bed, and nobody's with her, by the way, which kind of sucks. But anyways, and then they do the radio appearance, and this is the first Clint Howard appearance. Cause Mr. White tells them that they're gonna be on the radio, and then Guy and Clint Howard have this moment where they're talking about jazz, and the radio announcer's like really amped up about that. And then Guy obviously shouts out Faye that she couldn't be there because he's like, he considers her the 5th member of this band, literally.
Uh huh.
And then the next thing is where we get Saul Sawyer, the record Saul Seiler, the record owner, who I did look up, is played by Alex Rocco, the like legendary TV and movie star. And he's a fucking total jerk. And the first thing he does is single out Guy, and that just pisses off Jimmy, which oops. And then
Sucks this up. Sorry, dude. Sucks this up. Sorry, my guy. Sucks this up.
and then of course Lenny and the secretary, the convo. I wrote down this convo because the line was cracked me up, where he says, "How long have you worked here?" And he says, "How long have you worked at Playtown?" And she's like, "How long have you been wearing those tight pants?" I was like, "Burn! I love it. I love it." And then immediately Jimmy's so jealous of all of Guy's attention and immediately goes over to that Saul Seiler guy who's like he's like teaching people how to make a sandwich. And he's being so disgusting about it, like touching everything with his hands and like dipping it in mustard and then like just eating it with like his mouth open and everything. And Jimmy goes and shakes his hand, and then the record owner like starts getting pissed, and Mr. White goes over there and like rescues him. And then that's when you start to see the cracks in the band start swarming because they're kind of feeling neglected, and Jimmy's throwing a little tantrum and leaves the table, and of course Faye defends him because that's his girl. You know what else she's supposed to do? Um but I just thought that was like a total dick move. Like, talk. Don't just like ignore it or like whatever, but like honestly, that's fine. And then so as everyone's leaving, TB has this moment with these like soldiers and they make him start doing push-ups, and then Guy leaves, he heads out, he's talking to Omar and asks about if there's any jazz clubs outside of the hotel. And then Omar asks him the question. What was the question that he asks him?
Who recorded? Who recorded something with Jacques St. Clair on Vital Step? Something like
Oh
that.
yeah, and then Guy answers him, and he tells the cab driver to take him to the blue spot. Like, how original, right? And then
But
at the
that.
blue spot,
But side note, that's the kind of jazz club I want.
yeah, and then at the jazz club is where we get the Rita Wilson cameo. If you don't know, Rita Wilson is Thank's wife. And she's dressed in like a bunny costume, but it's not a bunny costume, but it's a bunny costume. Anyways. And Guy gets to see and meet his idol Del Paxton after he's talking to Rita Wilson and getting drunk, and she goes over and introduces him, and it's just amazing. And so Del Paxton gives him this advice and is like, save your money or something like that, because he knew, he's like, oh, Guy tells him something about him playing in a band. He's like, I played in many bands and they come and go.
Yeah, and I
And,
like
you
when he
know, they
tells him, he goes, "How long you been together?" He goes, 2 months, and he goes, "Most bands I've been in, that's 2 months too long."
exactly. And he wasn't wrong. He wasn't wrong. And then of course, Rita Wilson drives Guy back drunk to the hotel, and she pulls up and she has this moment where Mr. White pulls Guy out of the car and tells him that they're gonna play at the Hollywood Showcase. And Rita Wilson's like, "Oh, is this one of your guys?" Well, this hot guy is waiting for Mr. White, who, by the way, in this theatrical version, it's implied that Mr. White is gay, by the way.
Okay, so let me touch on this really quick. Are they trying to allude to like almost a Brian Epstein type thing?
I don't know what they were trying to do with
Because
that,
like
but
there was rumors, and look, I don't know. I wasn't there. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying what I've heard. I've heard stuff about Brian Epstein, the Beatles manager. So I was wondering if that's what they were alluding to.
I don't know what they were doing there or whatever, but I thought that part was weird for this theatrical version. I mean, I get what they were
Director's
doing there,
edition, director's cut edition.
or the director's edition. Like, I get what they were doing there, but I felt like it was not really necessary, but like, pop off. And then, of course, Guy yells, I am Spartacus, then trips on the floor outside the hotel. That was pretty funny. And then immediately the next thing that you see is the TV show that they're going to be on, the Hollywood Showcase, and they have these monkeys imitating the Beatles.
However, oh, okay, I just caught it
The
now.
monkeys imitating the Beatles. EYS. Didn't think I would catch on, did you? I got it. I got
I'm
it.
caught up now. I'm caught up now. A little slow on
And
the
then
uptake.
this is the and then they meet their new bass player named Scott Pels, and he's like that guy with like the
The
curly
Wolf Man.
hair,
That's what they call him. They call him the Wolf Man.
Wolfman. And then Guy asks if Faye is coming to the show, and she's all dressed all pretty, and so like her hair's all done up in a bun. And as she gets out of the car, she's walked inside by none other than
Wearing a real
Colin
Elven May
Hanks.
dress. For those who know, you
Exactly.
know.
Exactly. She's wearing a legendary Elven May dress, courtesy of Elrond. You know, Elrond's got that Elven chic. If you know, you know. She's walked in by Colin Hanks, Tom Hanks' son. Anyways,
Youngest
uh,
son, I think, because I think he's got two sons.
no, that's his oldest son. And then Guy's family starts freaking out on TV when they start seeing the promos for the Wonders. And Chad, the OG drummer, just happens to be with Guy's family because earlier, before that part came on, he went into the Patterson's Appliances and answered the help wanted sign. So now he's with Guy's family. I guess they adopted him now. And then, oh, there was something that I did notice in the scene. The astronaut is Bryan Cranston from Better Call Saul, but I can't remember what the name of that character was. But I did know that was Bryan Cranston. And then we have a lovely scene where, um, just as the guys are taking the stage on the Hollywood Showcase, Lenny turns around and says, "Hey, Skeech, how did we get you? How did we get here?" And then Guy says this wonderful line, says, "I led you here, for I'm Spartacus." And I was like, I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, because that was a symbolization of them like literally ending, like because he
Yeah.
knew. I guess the two of them already knew that the band was coming to an end, so I think that was their like closing speech to each other.
Yeah, and then in this part where like everybody's there in the people that are like behind the scenes on the TV, they're like, "Oh, it's time to introduce the band." And they show everybody's name, which they show Lenny's name is Leo, which why are we calling him Lenny? I don't know. And
Well,
then
it's
we
probably Leonard, but for short he goes by Leo.
I don't know. I thought that must have been some sort of plot slip. I think they show. Do they show Guy? Do they call him Shades or do they call him Guy? I don't
They
remember
didn't
that
call him
part.
Guy. Okay, so he's introduced first, and it says Shades,
Yeah,
and then it moves to Lenny, and it says Leo, and then it moves to the Wolfman, and it says Wolfman,
Wolfman.
and then it goes to Jimmy, and it says Jimmy, and then the bottom part says "Careful, girls, he's engaged."
Yeah. Oh, and
It's
Jimmy
point.
has this
He's
look like
pissed.
like he has this like come undone look. Like I don't know who did that
Like he's
or
about
why
to
they
slap
did
somebody.
that.
Like he's about to slap the shit out somebody.
He's about to slap a hoe. He's like angry about the announcement being engaged, and he was like and then after like right after that, like that was supposed to be a huge win for them, a huge high. And then the next scene is Guy is pissed. He goes off on Faye and they have this little
Not Guy,
moment.
Jimmy. It's Jimmy.
Sorry, he Jimmy goes off on Faye and was so angry about the engagement and it's like, who told you to tell them that or whatever, which I think she said that she didn't do it. They just assumed
No,
that they
if
were
you listen to what is implied, I think Mr. White was the one that said it.
maybe. And then the guys start coming back into the dressing room. Guy compliments Faye on how pretty she looks. And Faye is like, oh, she ain't having it. She's done. She's like, she has her moment. And she's like, she says her little lines. She breaks up with him. She's like, I am done with you, girl. I am out. And then Jimmy shouts, I should have dumped you in Pittsburgh. Like, Bitch, I don't know who you think you're talking to. I honestly don't know. Cause like that couldn't have been me. That couldn't have been me. And
She'd be
then,
wearing that guitar had that been her.
and then Guy like has this moment where he's like he realizes now that he's like a complete jerk and says, "Yeah, why couldn't you have dumped her in Pittsburgh?" And that's when you just know like these two have to end up together. And and then after that, you sort of see like they're in the studio and Jimmy's throwing a little tantrum. Mr. White's like, "Hold on, you still are under contract. You have to make this album." And then Jimmy's like, "I don't. I quit." And he leaves the band
But
after.
right there. Let me stop you, okay? That part
Yeah.
made no sense to me because they had other songs. Like I said, they had Little Wild One, All My Only Dreams, and stuff like that. Why were they trying to get him to record other songs from Playtone artists? I don't understand that.
Well, Jimmy was upset because he wanted to record the songs that he was writing, but Mr. White's like, "Hold on, we have songs already written for you that we want you to sing." And then he got angry and left. And so now we see everyone has is starting to leave. The next scene is Lenny getting married to the secretary, holding all these like poker chips, laughing and giggling, which like I get it, dude. I get it, my dude. That was pretty funny. And again, you see this in this theater or in this extended version, you see Faye is packing in her room, ready to leave. She is looking at pictures of Jimmy and she cuts out Jimmy. But the picture is her sitting in the middle, Guy's on her left, and then Jimmy's on the right. She cuts off the right part of the picture. And I think that's when we're all like, yeah, that totally should happen. And then while they're in the studio, Guy's still in the studio. He does this little drum solo thing because he's just riffing. And then here comes Del Paxton, and then it turns into like a little jam session, and then it turns into like a recording. And he tells Clint Howard because that's literally the only person he could talk to that would share his joy with this. And Clint Howard tells him to record it and offers him a job. And then so the next thing is Guy goes back to the hotel with all the recordings, and Faye is already getting ready to leave. She's standing outside. The doorman Omar asks if she has eaten yet. She's like, "No, I'm not really hungry." And then he's like, "Oh, but you got 20 minutes." He's like, "Go inside, get the turkey club sandwich," and I forgot what else it was in there because I didn't write it down. And like saving that moment because I think he already knew. And um that's when Guy pulls up and Omar tells Guy that Faye's about to leave and that he should go inside and say goodbye to her. And that's when they have the little moment, they talk. And Faye asked Guy if he was ever really in love with that girl, and I think he said yes. Didn't he say yes?
He says I was. That's what he said.
Yeah, he said he was, and then she asks him when the last time that he was kissed, and then like he says something. I can't really remember what it says, and and then she tells him that if he's ever back in Erie, that to come and see her, and that she tells him that none of it that if it wasn't for him, none of it would have happened, which is true, by the way. And then, she goes outside to catch the cab, and that's when we have our moment of realization like, this cannot happen. Guy goes after her. He asks her when the last time she was properly kissed. They kiss, and then they go back into the room and they tell Omar to watch their bags. Like, get it all right now, every single bit of it. And they should have ended up together, and they did. And they have that epic kiss, and that's the end of the movie.
And then cut to the ending credits. We find out a little bit of backstory. He goes on to run a jazz radio station and marries Faye. Lenny's still
Obviously.
single. Lenny's still single. I think they said that the bass player served 2 terms and was some sort of
In
like,
Vietnam.
yeah,
And
and
he's like a contractor or something.
something like that. I don't remember
Yeah.
them mentioning if he was married or not.
No, I don't think they did. And then obviously Jimmy gets a new band called the Herdsmen. They made 3 gold records for Playtone, and he's apparently a record producer in LA. And exactly. And then I wrote, the end credits. Thanks wrote some of the songs, but that's basically it. That's that thing you do. So, again, we do these little categories where we ask ourselves questions at the end of every movie. Certain categories about things like that. So, Deke, who do you think was the best guest star in this movie?
I have to say, I have to go out on a limb and say it was the guy that played Saul Siler.
Okay, yeah, interesting. I thought Rita Wilson was probably the best cameo in this movie for this time
But also, I'm
because
kind of biased. I also like Kevin Pollak too. So
yeah, Kevin Pollak, I can agree with that. So the best storyline. Do you think the best storyline was Faye and Guy getting together or Faye and Jimmy being together?
Guy and Faye, like no contest.
Exactly. And then of course, one of the categories is was a real life spouse or partner in the movie. Obviously, yes, Rita Wilson is thanks his wife, so she was in here. So, who do you think in this movie is the actual villain in this movie?
Well, I I would have to say I don't really think there is one. I think it was just ego and pride that was the ulterior motive and the driving factor of them breaking up.
I feel like they want us to think that it's Jimmy because he's breaking up the band, but I honestly think the actual villain in the story is Mr. White. The corrupt record executive. Being that like it was all fun and games in the beginning, and then at the end when Jimmy leaves the band and everyone leaves, he does tell Guy that they're still under contract and that he has to kick them out of the hotel if they're quitting, and it's just like that's it, it's done, it's over. Like, so I think he is meant to be the villain. Is he the best villain? No. I mean, but I think he's obviously the villain. So when did you notice any character changes in the movie?
I would have to say when they started getting famous, like, right when they recorded the record, and then you notice that Guy and Faye is starting to get closer. I was like, yeah.
I think I started noticing the character changes in the bar sequence when Jimmy goes and shows some of his songs to Diane Dane, and then the next shot is when she sits in his lap. Like I thought that was like when you saw that this person's like really bad, but they were supposed like you're not supposed to know that this person's bad, but they've been bad the whole time. So I did notice that. And then, does this storyline match any real life story? So the Wonders are obviously a fictional rock and roll band. They're a one hit
Kind
wonder.
of ties in. Well, the fictional rock band thing kind of is a tie into the Monkees. As far as the one hit wonders thing, I kind of think that that's a false narrative in this movie because they had more than one song.
Yeah, but I mean, like their hit was obviously that thing you do.
True,
That's like the only song they're gonna be known for. You know what I'm saying?
true,
Like
true,
I have an album full of 20 songs and I can only remember that song. You know what I'm saying?
true.
So, I think there's that. As far as does this match a real life storyline? Oh, for sure, for sure. There's so many bands from the '60s that were one hit wonders that had amazing songs, but I couldn't name you 5 of them other than that one particular song that they sang. So, yeah, that definitely does. And then, who were some of the big guest stars in this film?
Kevin Pollak, the guy who plays Saul Siler, Clint
Bryan
Howard,
Cranston.
Bryan Cranston, yeah.
Yeah, Rita Wilson for sure. And who is the goat of the movie? For sure it's Guy. And then who is the MVP? Now I have two. I have Faye and I have Omar the doorman, but also I really still like Kevin Pollak, so I'm going to say that he was MVP as well. And of course, lastly, the last question that I always ask every every time we do a podcast. If you could be a character in this movie, who would you be and create a backstory for that
That's
character?
easy. My boy Lenny. He was the funniest one throughout the movie. He was, other than Guy, he was the other real one throughout the movie.
For real, for real. I would like to be the bouncer, like just be like bouncing everywhere we go, like just guarding the door, like, hey, who are you? Why are you trying to get into the band? It was like, did you talk to Faye? No, I didn't talk to Faye. Be like, then you don't come in. I just want to invoke the right of scary dog privilege. But anyway, so Deke, where would you rank this movie, like on a scale from like 1 to 10? Of some
For
of the
me
best.
personally, okay, well, for me personally, on a scale from 9 to 10, I'll rank it. It's gonna hurt a little bit, 9.5.
I would rank this on like I would rank this as like a 6 or a 7 as far as movies I think that you really should see if you like want to feel good and have a good time and listen to good music. I would definitely recommend it to a friend, and the soundtrack is amazing. It has all the best songs. I highly recommend. So yeah, I would definitely recommend That Thing You Do to anyone who wants to see it. But I think that that is it for Deke and I for tonight. And the Bakester says he's tired and is ready for bed, but he's not. All right, so this is the Pickles and Bacon Show Rewind. Coming up next, we have the first season of Law and Order.
And we will review
Um,
that Thing You Do album.
yes. So basically, how it's gonna work is Deke and I have created a list of categories and things for all the shows that we're watching, and mainly SVU because there are so many seasons. So what we plan on doing is for every season, Deke and I are gonna pick our top 10 episodes of the season. We're gonna discuss those episodes, and then we're gonna go down the list of categories that we've written and chosen. Some of the things will be like who is the best guest star in that season,
Me.
the storyline, best ADA, so things like that. So that is what we have coming up probably on Sunday, depending because SVU has a lot of seasons. So,
And again, we will also review the album of this. We will tell you our favorite songs and things like that. So
and that's also coming up on Sunday. But other than that, this has been the Pickles and Bacon Show Rewind. We will see you guys on Sunday. Bye.
bye.